What is a silly lie you once told, and you are in so deep that you have no other choice but to uphold it? Long ago, Discovery Channel had a special on prehistoric pigs. It aired on April 1st, and being a 12-year-old who was smart and knew how to think critically, that is didn't think to look into the special and find out if it was the real deal, as I thought I knew everything. I assumed it was a joke show put on by the channel. A few months later, they re-aired the special. My dad happened to be watching it and, nerd that he is, called me in excitedly to show me this prehistoric pig programming. I scoffed and said, "Dad, it's fake. It was made for April Fools and now they're showing it again." "Oh," he said, and laughed and laughed. "Here's the thing, I was wrong. The show was about a real animal that really existed. I discovered this a few years later on the internet. But by now my dad had started using these fake giant pigs as a conversation starter. Not only that, but he's flipped the story a bit. Now he's the one who saw the show on April 1st. And, 23 years later, the man still brings up this fucking show. Because he thinks the idea of what he calls dinosaur pigs is hilarious. I thought of telling him, but it's too deep now. I go to my grave with this one. There is a guy who I used to work with at a corporate chain steakhouse while I was going to college that had bit of a whopper. We stayed up all night partying, and he didn't wake up in time for his opening shift the following day. When he finally got up, he was 2 hours late and had a grip of missed calls. He was about a month away from graduating and had worked this same job all through college, so he was worried that he was going to get fired and wouldn't be able to use the job reference. So his solution was to call in and tell the boss he had been in a car accident on his way to work. Now, this temporarily solved the problem, but to really sell the story he ended up hiding his truck in a friend's garage and working his next 4 weeks of serving shifts with a fake full arm cast. Brandon, you're a fucking legend. Last year on the first day of month-long rotation in medical school, I was telling a story and accidentally referred to my dog as my daughter. Quickly did the mental evaluation of how embarrassing it would be to correct myself vs rolling with it, and just decided to go with it and pretended I had a kid for the rest of the month. I didn't purposely bring it up or anything, but if someone mentioned it was October, was asked about taking my kid trick-or-treating etc., I would just vaguely agree and not elaborate on anything. How old is your daughter? 3, but she's 18 and due auto years. Not me, but my hairdresser told me this a few months ago, and I couldn't stop laughing. A few years ago, he and his girlfriend, at the time, went on vacation to a resort somewhere in Spain. On the first day of arriving, they got talking to another couple they met in the hotel, and just for a joke he pretended to be American by putting on an accent. He's English. He said he wasn't even sure why he did it. He was just goofing around, and he thought he'd never see these people again. So it was just a throwaway thing. However, they ended up being pretty good friends with this couple and saw quite a lot of them over the course of the vacation. I guess it would have been too embarrassing/weird to come clean and tell them the truth. So he just had to go with it and put on an American accent every time he saw them. For a week. In addition to this, he was also going through some problems in his relationship. Can't think why. So basically spent the whole trip either arguing with his girlfriend or having to get in character and pretend to be American for no other reason than his own stupidity. He said it was the worst vacation of his life and was more stressful than being home at work. Here we go. When I was in 6th grade, my buddy and I attempted to skip school. We planned that the next day he would stay home sick. I would use this landline phone I had in my room, which had a hold feature to what I thought would tie up the line all day so that the school couldn't get a hold of my mom, who worked from home. This is obviously long before cell phones were a thing. I would go to Buddy's house and we would play Genesis all day. So, turns out that phones don't work like that. We are hanging out and suddenly I hear a car outside. I run downstairs and hide while Buddy answers the door to my crying mother, who asks if he's seen me. He lies and says no. When she goes, I come up and decide that I'm in big trouble and need to cover it. I plan to say some teenagers from the nearby high school were picking on me and chase me around a neighborhood I didn't know well. I head home and run into my dad, who was looking for me. I give him the story and he seemed to buy it. He takes me home where my mom is on the phone to the police. She had my school picture out and is crying. She puts me on the phone and makes me tell my story to the cop. He sounds skeptical, but he accepts the story. My mom is happy I wasn't abducted by serial rapists. She then asks if I want to go back to school in the afternoon. I say I do, because it'll get me away from being grilled about it anymore at home. But at school, I get grilled by my teacher and the principal. My friend informs me the entire school went on lockdown when I was missing because of potential abduction. I had to keep going with the teenager story for years. I finally told my mom years later when I was an adult, and she was pretty mad, but I was past getting in trouble for it. I can't think of any really big ones, but there's one weird one. In college, a group of people I didn't know well were talking about this guy they'd gone to high school with who looked exactly like me, to the point that they were convinced I was him fucking with them by pretending to be someone else. The only difference was that my doppelganger wore glasses and I didn't. So in order to fuck with them a little bit, I said that I'd worn glasses in high school, but didn't anymore. I'd never worn glasses. One of the people there that I did know well remembered what I'd said and didn't believe me, so the next time she bumped into my best friend from high school, she asked whether I'd worn glasses. He backed me up instantly. I figured he'd just figured something was up and decided to back me up. A decade later, with the acquisition of good vision insurance, I had my eyes checked and actually did wind up getting glasses with a very mild prescription. Upon seeing me with them for the first time, my best friend said, "Oh wow, I haven't seen you with glasses on since high school." I've never been sure whether he backed me up and then somehow internalized that backup and then really believed that I wore glasses in high school, or whether he just always somehow believed that I'd worn glasses. I've chosen to use it to very subtly fuck with him by photoshopping glasses onto my face in old pictures that he's going to see. I did it recently when his sister asked me for some photos to use for his upcoming wedding. It'll probably never actually pay off, but I privately think it's hilarious. I once got sort of unapproved access to a VIP area at a venue, and the person who got me in probably would have gotten in trouble if it was found out that they did. A fairly major musician was playing. This was the lounge area where their family and friends were watching the show. Only about 20 people. When people asked why I was there, I said I was related to the owner of the venue, figured this was boring enough, but would stop the questions. Instead, this really nice group of people all started complimenting me on the venue and talking to me more about it and my family. They were really awesome people and we chatted the rest of the evening. They invited me to spend the upcoming holiday weekend at their beach house with the band. I did. No one ever found out I have no connection to the venue and don't even know who actually owns it. I was watching my buddy who was in an amateur MMA fight and brought a Canon Rebel T3 camera and was wearing sandals, a Pepsi t-shirt, and khaki shorts. I went to the bar to get a water and the bartender told me staff get free drinks and handed me 2 bottles of water for free. I figured I looked close enough to the staff there that I can sneak onto the main floor and take pictures from the stage, and I did. No one questioned me and I got some horrible shots because I don't know how to properly use a camera. I'm not sure if this counts, but the girl at the front desk of my gym has been calling me Justin for like 6 years. My name isn't Justin. I'm not sure if this counts, but the girl at the front desk of my gym has been calling me Justin for like 6 years. My name isn't Justin. God damn it, I'm not happy about giving you this upvote. Guy on the bus to work started calling me Mike one morning and I should have told him that wasn't my name, but I secretly liked it. 18 months later I still haven't told him. I even had to warn my daughter, who started getting the same bus as me in the morning, what had happened. She found it hilarious. I'm in too deep now. Mike is now my name for 40 minutes every morning, Monday to Friday. There was a guy in high school. We had classes together starting in 9th grade, but he went to my school since kindergarten, but we didn't have a class together until we were teenagers. For some reason, I thought his name was Richard. First day of class he comes up and sits in front of me and I just smile and say, "Hey Richard," and that's that. Every time we worked on a project together, every time I passed him in the halls. For years, I'd called him Richard. We had a project together in a class, and it was a week of hanging out together at the library and each other's houses. I called him Richard in front of his mom. I introduced him to my parents as Richard. He always responded to Richard, always got my name right. Never tried to correct me. I wrote our names on the project and handed it in. I got asked by the teacher the next day, "Who is Richard? Wasn't your partner Charlie?" For nearly 10 years I'd been calling this boy named Charlie, Richard, and no one ever corrected me, not even his mom. I asked him after class why he never corrected me, and he just said it was weird and he didn't know how to handle it. And as time passed he figured it was too late now. What a dick. That I could play the piano. I never thought it would come up and that I was safe with my lie. It did come up, more often than I thought it would. I had to make up an excuse to not play, and people started to think I was lying about know how to play. Eventually, I took some lessons, so that way, if it came up again I could actually play something, and not look like I'm completely full of shit. It paid off, and after I moved from that area I never told anyone I could play piano again. When I was 10, another kid on my school bus asked me if I played World of Warcraft. I lied and said yes. I spent the entire rest of the year, before and after school on the bus, talking about a game I never played in my life. One day, I was invited over when he made me log in. I entered some account and claimed I forgot my password, spending the next 30 minutes trying to debug by resetting a password to an account that doesn't exist. Haha. Oh my god. What was I doing? My boyfriend, now husband, told me he went to grad school but never graduated. I found out around 10 years into us dating that it was a giant lie he had said to impress me. The only reason he came clean was his mother found out and told me. Did he get his degree, or did he not attend? He claimed he attended and didn't finish. The truth was he had been accepted but never went. He never really talked about it. It only came up when I mentioned him living off campus during graduate school and his mother was like, WTF are you talking about? Years ago, Canada beat the United States in the Olympics in hockey. I had a couple coworkers that had been gloating about how the US was gonna kick those Canadian asses for a week beforehand. So, naturally, I teased them the day after the Canadians won. What, are you Canadian or something? Actually, yes. I have a dual citizenship. They told a bunch of other coworkers and it spread around. I had to look up Canadian facts to keep my story straight. Similarly, when I was 11, I had a crush on this girl, and when we got back to school from summer holidays, she was going on and on about how she had just come back from visiting family in Canada, and how much she loved Canada and everyone from Canada, so I lied and told her I was from Canada. Here I am, 14 years later, and due to overlapping friends throughout my life, the fact that I was from Canada and stories about my time in Canada have never fully died out. I don't think I've proactively lied about it since that day, but friends will bring it up in conversation around new people we meet and it just keeps getting passed on in my record. To be honest, the only person I've told the truth to is my boyfriend, because he's actually Canadian, and he's met my parents, and he had to know. That's right, turns out I'm gay. I was a confused gay 11-year-old that made a lifelong lie to impress a girl that he would discover just months later that he certainly was not actually interested in. Told my husband when we first met that he couldn't talk to my grandparents because they only spoke German. They did speak a lot of German, but their English was fine. I just didn't want them to know I was seeing an Irish Catholic guy. They were very strict Lutherans. Now I'm 20 years into the marriage and so screwed. Tell your grandparents that your husband doesn't speak English but only speaks German. Then they will only talk to him in German. Explain to them that his English is very poor, but he still tries to use it. If he attempts to say some nonsensical English sentences, they should ignore him and focus on trying to communicate in German, which is at least better than his terrible English. I told my friends I was colorblind to only the color orange. For some reason, they all believed me and would point out orange things to me and laugh at me, while my girlfriend and I would be laughing on the inside. You should start occasionally bumping into orange objects to up the ante. I've strongly considered pushing it further, but I don't wanna risk them calling me on it. An older man at the church I go to misheard my name as Rachel. When I tried to correct him, he didn't hear my actual name. He later had his wife approach me and ask my name. I just said Rachel, thinking it would be fine. They told the entire church my name was Rachel and it stuck. I'm 8 years into this Rachel line at church. Great. I had to use my mom's van for a semester in my second year of university. One of my classmates saw this and started poking fun at me. He asked, "What, are you a single mother now?" So I decided to go with it and said, "Nah, my wife passed away and I'm a single father with twin daughters." He got pretty apologetic and I thought that was that. That is until he started asking me about them every class period. I panicked and kept the lie going, even printing out a stock photo of twin girls to put in my wallet. To this day I still get messages from him asking how the twins are doing. They just celebrated their 7th birthday and love soccer and school. When I was dating my husband, his mom wanted us to stay the night. I really didn't want to. Told her I needed to go home due to not feeling well and thinking I had a fever. She offers me Tylenol and I said I couldn't have it because I was allergic. Not sure why I said it. Anyways, my husband overheard it and I later didn't want to tell him I had lied to his mom. We're married now. I recently had to go to the ER due to breaking a bone and was in so much pain I couldn't talk. He told the nurse I was allergic to Tylenol. He then went to my surgery and doctor appointments with me after that, and I had to continue to say I'm allergic to Tylenol. My Tylenol allergy is now all over my medical records. Not me, but a girl I became friends with on a study abroad trip to Japan got asked by her host family where she was from. They misused English, and it came out something like, "Where did you leave from?" Instead, being from the middle of New Jersey somewhere, she answered Newark, which was where she had departed from. Of course, these nice people from rural Japan, having never heard of Newark, heard New York. They were so excited that they had gotten a host kid from New York City that they promptly told all their friends all the time over the course of the month we were there. She never had the heart to correct them, so for that month, she was a proud New Yorker. Not mine, but my grandparents both have birthdays only a few days apart, June 3rd and June 6th, with my grandma's birthday coming first. When they were in their first few months of dating, my grandpa told her they were going to celebrate on June 3rd for the both of us. This being their first time really discussing birthdays, my grandma took this to mean that they were both born on the same day. She played it up. "Oh, we are soulmates. Look at us, born on the same day of the same year." That kind of thing. My grandpa didn't realize his mistake until she told him happy birthday on June 3rd, but she was so happy about it, he couldn't bring himself to correct her and was just like, "Yeah, cool. We are born on the same day." This went on for years, with him actively hiding his birthday mail from her and pretending that his folks were calling him on June 3rd rather than June 6th. She didn't find out until over a decade later when they were married, and she was mortified that for the last 12 years she'd been celebrating his birthday on the wrong day. Not really a lie, Paresi, but I can't believe he let it run for that long. Mayo. In second grade, a friend whispered my name during quiet time and I jokingly told the teacher that a ghost is talking to me. Later that day I was sent to the special counselor's room asking about me talking to ghosts. Jokingly I continued lying about how I downloaded a ghost radar app from those text the number to get this shit on my dad's flip phone and how they were always close and I just casually talked to them. I went with the lie for a few days cause how deep I was until one night my parents came home and just started screaming at me, "What the fuck are you telling your school? You see and talk to dead people, what the fuck?" And my brother and sister were just cracking up while my parents told me how I could be taken to a mental hospital if I don't stop lying, and it was funny until they kept mentioning I'd be taken away. We laugh about it a lot, but goddamn that was my finest work of art. Oh dear lord, here we go. Started my job about a year ago, and we get a 30-minute break which I wanted to split into 2 breaks of 15 minutes or 3 breaks of 10 minutes, so I can smoke. My manager said this was fine. Later on, a coworker asks me why I split my breaks as it's not long enough to eat properly. Me, oh I don't eat during the day. Coworker thought this was an interesting fact so told everyone. Same coworker asked me if I wanted a cuppa, and I said yes, but asked for honey in it instead of sugar as it's healthier for you, and I was on a diet at the time. He asks if I'm some kind of health freak, and if I drink herbal teas etc. Me, didn't hear him right, yes. Later that week my manager orders pizza as a treat. I ask for cheese and tomato as I don't like meaty pizza. My coworker asks me if I'm vegetarian. Me, I just really don't like meat. I meant on pizza, but he didn't take it that way and thought I didn't eat any meat. So I'm a super awkward person and didn't want to correct this same coworker. 1 year down the line, I'm sneaking out eating my ham sandwiches on my 15-minute lunch break and my coworkers only ever make me tea with honey. How do I end this lie, or has it gone too far? #PLZHELP. One of my colleagues, as a way to mess with her in-laws, decided to tell them their son, her husband, was obsessed with Elvis and would love Elvis-related presents for Christmas/birthday, etc. He has no interest in Elvis at all, but through politeness, did not question his parents when they suddenly started giving him Elvis albums, movies, t-shirts, mugs, etc. Well, it's 20 years later, their house is full of Elvis memorabilia, his wife still thinks it's hilarious, and he's too far into the prank to correct them. 20 or so years ago, I pretended to pull a tiny bone out of a cocktail sausage at the dinner table. I had found the bone earlier and came up with the idea. My dad rushed for the phone when he saw and called a newspaper company. Young me didn't know how to stop this and was told to shush because he was on the phone. So I just rolled with it. A couple of days later I was taking up the whole front page of this newspaper, holding said bone. I knew I was too deep to pull back. The bone and the rest of the cocktail sausages got driven by taxi to a lab for testing. The whole production got pulled back. Probably loads of money wasted for the company. I told my parents the truth about 6 months later. They laughed hysterically. I told my niece that spaghetti and meatballs in Italian is spaghetti with marbles when she was like 3 years old, and now she's 5 and won't stop asking for spaghetti with marbles at restaurants, and it's a whole situation where she won't stop. Just wait until she finally realizes she was lied to and her world comes crashing down. Her alcoholism in 12 to 15 years, that's on you. Not me but my ex. When I first started dating my ex-fiance, he told me he had lost his eye in a motorcycle accident and that what was in its place was a silicone sack with an imprint of his other eye to match. Writing that out, I would never believe that now. This was before Google, so no way to verify. Medical breakthroughs can be crazy sounding, and I had no reason not to believe him. 6 years into our relationship, engaged and all that, and he's having pain in the eye and something bad is going on. We end up at Duke University's eye center that night. The ophthalmologist calls him in for an exam, and X tells me to come in too. I'm sitting there watching the doctor do a vision check, and X says I can't see out of this eye. The doctor says you can but not well. I was floored, but didn't mention it 2 days later, when he had surgery on the eye to repair it. We were driving home from the hospital. He was drugged up, so I asked him about it. He had had an eye injury as a teenager, but it was still a functioning eye. No idea why he would make that up. I'm about to clock out and leave for work, so I will keep this short and sweet. If anyone wants details I can add them eventually. I found an envelope with a ton of cash in it. Turned out to be my dad's roommate's rent. Didn't know till a week later, after blowing it all on random shit and hiding the rest, bigger bills, that it was someone's rent. I thought I had just stumbled on some treasure. I was in like the 5th grade. Dad's roommate blamed one guy, who was related to my dad. His nephew that was also renting a room. Turned into a family dividing argument. My father hasn't spoken to an entire portion of his family because of the disappearing rent for several years now. Decades. Many years ago I got really sick. At the time I was doing a lot of camping and hiking, mainly without tents, just roughing it. I said developed a weird rash on my chest. A friend, who was a nurse, was concerned I had Lyme's disease as all the symptoms were similar. He suggested I go get tested. I told my job that I had to go to the doctor, and somehow I mentioned I thought I had this disease. They immediately became super supportive, and I ended up getting a lot of days when I could take off or leave early. The problem was that it turned out I didn't have Lyme's disease. I just had developed eczema, and the other stuff was poor diet and some other stuff. I really liked the ability to say I had to leave because I was feeling sick though. Fast forward and I end up staying at the job longer than I thought. Along the way, a very old friend whom I had lost touch with talked to someone I worked with, and they said I was sick. Being concerned, he reached out. We became best friends again, but he's always thought I was sick and got cured. This even carried to when I got serious with a woman, whom he told about my illness. Of course, I was like 3 years in, and correct back out. I said it was all cleared. Years later we are having a kid, and she's still concerned to the point I have to get blood tests when we decide to have a baby. At this point, my doctor is long since retired, so there's absolutely no follow-up by medical professionals. I feel absolutely 1000% shitty whenever I think about it. I knew enough about the disease and treatment from years of lying that on the rare occasion the lie comes back I can still fake it, but I'll take the truth to my grave. Well, sort of, I guess. Lol. In the 5th grade I failed a big test. My grades were awful, and I was told it was possible for me to fail. After my teacher handed out all the tests, there was one left without a name. She asked whose it was. I saw that it got an 80 something, and I raised my hand. My teacher was a little suspicious, so she asked me to verify and showed me the test. I told her the test was mine, but she was skeptical, so she asked me to spell a word with Z and the day's date. It had a 7. I had noticed that on the test, whoever wrote it put a line through the Z and 7. So I wrote it out like that. She wrote down the grade and bam, the test was mine. My name has a Z in it, so since that day my Z's and 7's all had lines through them, just in case. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that bell to turn on notifications, so you'll be sure to know when the next video comes out. Want to watch some more? Check out my other videos. I really do appreciate everyone who helps make these videos possible. And as always, thanks for watching.